I go, Matt? Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Albany City Council work session, Monday, April 25th, 2022 at 4 p.m. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor Olson. Here. Councilor Novak. Here. Councilor Bartholomew. Here. Councilor Kopczynski.
Here.
Councilor Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Johnson II.
Here. So the first thing on the agenda is 4:05. We're a little ahead. Thank you. Is business from the public. Persons wanting to provide comments may submit written comments or register to speak at the website provided in the agenda before noon the day of the meeting, or appear in person at the meeting and register to speak using the sign-up sheet. Has anyone signed up to speak? I have one person signed up to speak. Christine LaHoda, please join us. Yes, ma'am. Can we get a microphone for her, please?
There is one.
There is one? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, it's in the wrong line.
Is this it?
Yes.
Okay,
You're going to need to speak directly into it because it kind of loses it as we go away from it.
okay.
And good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. I appreciate it. Okay, forgive me. I am so nervous. My name's Christine LaHoda. I live at 855 Cox Street.
The whole base goes with you.
Okay, it's whistling. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't killing your ears. I live at 855 Cox Street, Southeast Albany, Oregon, 97322. I've owned the property for approximately 25 years, and I appreciate Marilyn and Mayor Johnson II for listening to me prior to coming to this meeting. There's some property that is in between 905 Cox Street and 855 Cox Street, and I just printed off an aerial view of the property so that you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. And I marked the map as north, south, east, and west. And the little highlighted area in there is the easement area that I'm referring to. That's been there for as long as I can ever remember and prior to me even purchasing my property. It has been a thoroughway for ill intent. I cannot even tell you how many drug needles I've picked up out of that little easement there, drug deals that I've witnessed, and people parking there to go through that little easement and head to the trailer park to do whatever they are probably doing. Last summer, one of the police officers who frequents to make sure the trailer park is trying to get back up to code in that, I was talking to him and he actually told me that I should get with the city to vacate the property to us because it seems to be such a nuisance to have people walk through the neighborhood and cut through for their drug deals or theft. We've had people go in between our properties on the other side and steal cans that were hidden. I mean, take full garbage cans along with them. Some people down the street from me had stuff stolen. I've had a vehicle stolen from out in front of my house. That thoroughway is very much a nuisance. It gets more police calls than ever. If you would check that anything in that trailer park has been really not a good thing for Albany, what's been going on in there. I've witnessed people crawl under the fence with a bag, hide it, leave. We've called the police, and then someone else comes and crawls under the fence and gets the bag and leaves. So there is, and if you look at the police reports, I'm pretty sure you'll realize that trailer park is not a good thing for the neighborhood. So what I would like to do is have the property vacated to 855 and 905 is what was told was the proper thing to do. I want to fence it so that there's not that thoroughway for people to walk through our neighborhood and cut through there. And if that helps reduce crime or whatever, or detours people from going through there. I think it was last summer, time gets away from me, but somebody actually, we watched them walk down the street, was not of sound mind, watched them walk through the thoroughway, go right behind the fence and start collecting wood, and was going to build a fire. And this is during the 100-degree weather. I had to call the police. Thankfully, they came. They removed her in that, but it could have been a pretty nasty thing. There's been people that'll go into the trailer park and break into the trailers, which that's a whole nother city council meeting, that are being parked in that back area. What I would really like to do is secure my neighborhood for better safety. And if I can deter somebody from walking through there or parking there to go get their drugs, amen. And I want to say I appreciate so much you guys listening to me and hearing me out, because I've lived 25 years of it, and I want to make it a safer neighborhood.
Thank you, Christine. Council, any questions for Ms. LaHoda?
I do have one question.
Excuse me. No, let's go ahead and do it now. If you don't mind me deviating from my agenda, I'm going to go ahead and do it now, have those discussions. Go ahead, please.
My question is, you say you've lived there 25 years?
Correct.
How long?
I've
have you
owned the
had-
property for 25 years, correct.
And how long have you been witnessing drug deals going down and these things going on? Is this recent or is it?
No, it's been going on for 25 years. I called the police. I had my trailer parked there on the street one time, and I witnessed a drug deal behind my trailer. They were hiding behind the trailer from the trailer park, and somebody would come in from our neighborhood, and they would walk and meet and do their little drug deal. So I'm assuming the drug dealer came from the trailer park, and the driver that was in there was the one purchasing. But I did call the police, and there is record over the years of that happening. There was a short stint that I didn't live there. I'm not sure, maybe 6 years. But I've been there again for 3 years, and it's just getting worse. And the great thing is we have security cameras now, and I've been not working from a work injury, and so I'm really witnessing what's going on in the neighborhood all day long, and even at 3 or 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. It's just, that's been just an ill thoroughway for drug and people that are stealing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Counselor Johnson. She's on the Zoom. She's down here. Counselor Johnson, you're next up.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank you for coming forward. We have had other areas in the city where the property owners have come for the same reason. And we have okayed the, combining of the properties or whatever needs to be done, and it seems to have worked. So again, I thank you for coming forward. These are the things we need to know, and we need to do something about it, because there's no
appreciate it.
reason that you should be submitted to this over and over and over again. It's not only unhealthy, it's dangerous. So thank you very much.
Amen.
Thank you. Any other counselor have something?
I move that we move this to the Wednesday meeting agenda.
Mayor,
Yes.
so we heard about this. I'm not sure how I heard about it. Actually, I don't remember. And we're looking into it. It looks like it's fine to vacate, but we'll have to bring that back for a regular vacation, which I think is a public hearing. And we have another property that has also requested, the one near Helping Hands. So we have two right-of-way
That's right.
vacations that we handle, but we'll have to bring it back with all the proper
Public
paperwork
notice, yeah.
for a public hearing. So it'll
Okay.
probably be a month, probably be next month at one of the council meetings before we can get that on the agenda.
Yeah, we need a staff report on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Right.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
there's a whole process, and it will involve the adjacent property owners who would be receiving the property. There's a legal process to get that accomplished.
So this is a great first step. It sounds like you have support of the council. And
I
so
appreciate it.
Director Bailey will and staff will bring back a report for us. And once we do that, you'll be invited back out to come and with the other property owner, and we'll move things forward.
Okay, so I need the Richmonds to come also?
Yes.
Is what I need?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'd probably be helpful to having both property owners here.
Okay. And I did get 75%
Yeah, we saw that. Thank you. That's
plus.
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't anybody that was against it
Yeah.
in the neighborhood.
Yeah, any land use issues, we do need to have a public hearing notice. We have to give people opportunity to come and speak their mind. So thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
It's good seeing you
appreciate it.
again. So next on the agenda is economic development update with Seth Sherry. On your information's on page 2.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for giving me a little time this afternoon. I thought it would be good to regularly schedule, now that we're back together, particularly a little bit of insight for you all on what the world of economic development within our program at least looks like here in Albany. A little bit about what we've been up to the last quarter and what the near future looks like. So this is intended to be somewhat informal. Please interrupt me at any time with questions, and I'll just give you a few updates if that's okay. And I have a few handouts to go along with that as well that you might find useful. And I'll also just acknowledge, working with you all during the goal setting and strategic planning process that we've been on this late winter and spring, it was great to hear the enthusiasm from everybody individually and together about strengthening our economic development program and refreshing our strategy and working on that together. So I'll make a note on that here in a minute as well. So the first thing I thought I'd just touch on with you is some of the most recent business recruitment efforts we've been involved in. Recruitments come primarily in three ways. We get inbound opportunities, and those typically come through the state of Oregon and their economic development agency called Business Oregon. I'll mention them a few times. And Biz Oregon has national and international efforts to recruit companies here. And how it often looks is we'll get a note from the two main recruitment officers who say, hey, anybody who's got a property that fits the needs of this particular company, why don't you go ahead and respond? And so we pull together information about utilities and building sizes and prices and all those sorts of things, sometimes special requirements to get those back to respond to these requests for information. So that's one of them. Secondly, we do our own sort of outbound efforts, trying to find people who would be interested in coming here for any number of reasons. And then thirdly, and this is, I think, the most effective one, that's building relationships with existing companies to understand who they're doing business with, where it makes sense for them to co-locate. There's a synergistic effect to that. And then us being a supportive effort in that and saying, hey, if you think it makes sense for them to come, let's go together and talk about the development pathway here and connect them with local resources such as financing, brokers, other businesses, and so forth. So with that in mind, I'll just note three recruitments. One, most recently was a couple of weeks ago, a company called Muse Engine. And special thanks to Mayor Alex and Councilor Kopczynski for being so warm as we happened to cross paths throughout the day, which was neat. But they're a company in the early startup phase coming out of New Orleans. And if you recall, do you remember in the 90s, there was those sort of popular toys, you might have it on a coffee table, where there was all those metal pins and you could put your hand in it and you'd see the imprint of your hand? So they've created a technology that combines both 3D printing and I'm just trying to blank right now, injection molding, where you have two of those planes with all the pins on them. And with a 3D file, the pins will remove themselves to create a void in which they can inject different materials for manufacturing. And what's really unique about this is with 3D printing, for example, there's some drawbacks. It's slow. There's some tolerance issues on occasion, depending what your need is. And so they can print in no time at all with no tooling, 8,000 parts a day out of one of these little these printers that they've created essentially. Really neat technology. And if you start to let your mind think about the implications for manufacturing, onshoring manufacturing, supporting existing companies here in our area who need parts quickly, this could be really remarkable for us. So they came out of New Orleans. They're looking for a new home. They're not happy with the business environment there. They've had issues with power, for example. They're kind of in the downtown area. They've had unreliable power. So they came up here and we spent a full day. We went to Lynn Benton Community College and met with Lisa Avery, the president there, and Steve Schilling and the other folks with the CTE department, and looked at all the investment that's happened there and how that creates an opportunity to hire workforce, as well as thinking about utilizing some of their facilities in the development process for this company. So that was a wonderful experience. We met with local brokers looking at space and buildings available and the development pathway for them. Spent some time with the mayor, and we went, in fact, we're walking around downtown looking at what the potential and future will be there, and happened to stop by the carousel, and Ray was working, and they just absolutely loved that. They were so impressed by everybody here, how friendly they were, how consistent our messaging was, and how clear the development path would look for them. So they're working with their investors and the other owners of the company right now to make a plan to come up here, and we'll make a final decision in June. So very exciting. The I just mentioned is CoreQuest, and you might be familiar with that name. They have been leasing space in Millersburg for 10 years, maybe, something like that. I know Janet's sitting back here, she might know. They recently purchased property right across from Waverly Pond. There was the old headquarters for Arauco was there, and there was a vacant 3 or so acres to the north of that. They've purchased that and have started construction to build a new facility for themselves that they'll own. It's a roughly $10 million investment there. They're actually bringing their warehousing from Nevada back here to Oregon. They create the control systems for all those big paper manufacturers who create corrugated cardboard for packaging. So they have business all over the world, a lot in North America, Canada, and that kind of thing. Really exciting to have them here. We're not taking responsibility for recruiting them specifically, but what's been interesting is chatting with them about their development process here. You know, I don't think I would claim that we're perfect, and no one would here either, but one of the great responsibilities and opportunities the Economic Development Program has, as well as community development and so forth, is to identify unnecessary points of friction or barriers, and then identify those ones that we can remove to make that development pathway smoother. So we've identified a few in that project, and we'll be applying those for others moving forward. Lastly, we just submitted today for a state lead recruitment for, they have these code names for the projects, right? But it's Project Roman numeral 9. And it's a unique new technology that's a low energy titanium recycling process. So they can take the bits and pieces that come off of milling and titanium casting, recycle those with a much lower energy footprint, and put that material back into production. Again, you never know if you'll win those or not, but we're able to respond. We actually have a building coming that would fit their needs. The zoning works well, and we're really happy to respond to that. And then I'll mention just one last one. For a long time, many of you have heard of the Kempf property. It's 67 acres just south of Home Depot, or adjacent to I-5. Now, nothing's done there, but they are under contract, which is really exciting because they haven't been in that position for some time. Typically with these large site developments, that due diligence period is quite long. In this case, it's about 10 months. Been working with the owners and the representative for that property for well over a year now on different opportunities for businesses to go there. And it looks like there's a company interested who would both build to spec and to suit and do full development of that site. The intention is to look at full development of that 67 acres. So I'll keep you abreast of that as well as we learn more. Pretty exciting. Okay, so secondly, I just cover a few outside investment marketing opportunities, as I noted in that memo. One in particular is a conference called Select USA. This is the prime foreign direct investment conference in the country. It's put on by the Department of Commerce. It's held in DC during the summer, and we were just invited, City of Albany, to participate in that. Business Oregon has secured booths for that and has offered us table space if we want to do that. I'm not sure if we'll be ready just yet or if it makes perfect sense, but they have noted our ability to respond to recruitments well and sell Oregon and Albany, and have invited us to have free space at that conference. So this would be companies primarily from all around the world looking to invest in the U.S. Foreign direct investment typically means they're either moving a company here or buying interest in a company here because they want to take advantage of consistent rule of law, a strong economy, and currency, that kind of thing. So I'll, again, keep you abreast of that, but it'd be an opportunity to make some offerings of property available for development here in Albany. When is that? That's in the end of June. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing about outside investment, and maybe it's tangentially related, but you all remember Oregon is getting a large chunk of money through the infrastructure federal infrastructure bill. And if we internally here have learned lessons, that's to be proactive with our legislature about demonstrating needs and opportunities to use that money, these federal dollars here locally that have impact across the region. So our team, along with Chris and others here, have put together a number of offerings. So as that money gets divvied out and the state thinks about its priority of use, we have ready-made projects to go. And I brought 2 examples for you, which I can pass to you. And you're welcome to use these as you're talking with legislators or otherwise about potential projects here. These are both infrastructure related, specifically around job creation and housing creation. What we find is limitations to industrial land are oftentimes closely linked to housing lands as well. And in this case, the 2 that I brought for you to look at are related to South Albany, particularly a new crossing across the rail tracks that are needed at 53rd Street and accompanying road to open up a huge chunk of industrial land, one of the biggest sites in the whole West Coast that's undeveloped right now between Seattle and LA. And then it also opens up a bunch of residential property and some community commercial, which would support a grocery store there very nicely. And then the second property that I have here, or project rather, has to do with Timber Street realignment, which some of you who've been on the council for a little while know that there's been plans in the mix for a while now to realign Timber Street over in East Albany to provide a new and required access per ODOT for both industrial land development and some residential uses as well. So I've got these here. I can pass these out to you and have a look at them, and feel free to ask questions. I'll just move on if there's no questions immediately. The other thing I wanted to note was a few grant funding opportunities. And we were contacted by Business Oregon, again, close partners there, maybe 2 months ago, that they were being asked to stand up a new grant fund statewide called the Emergent Opportunity Fund. They were given $25 million to distribute for basically shovel-ready projects that support emergent industry and economic development. And so very loose, to be honest, which is kind of neat because it came with a flexibility that could support any number of projects. And immediately in my mind, I was thinking about a project that we've been working on for some time now with, some of you know Chris Hansen. He's a local broker here, investor, and has started companies and sold them in the past here. He's been a great partner as we think about new companies locating here and finding land and all that sort of thing. Well, he's had in his mind for a while that he wanted to build what we call a flexible manufacturing space. So in the world of commercial and industrial retail property, first of all, we have very few vacant properties in Albany, particularly with existing buildings. And what we lack, and what's really obvious if you talk to brokers who work in the commercial industrial space, is we lack this small to mid-sized space. This is the 2,000 to 5,000 square foot space where a smaller company can grow into and grow out of and then move on to do something else. And what you often find is, particularly with younger, earlier stage companies who have a new technology or a new manufacturing process, their job is to grow the company, but they're not experts in land development and acquisition and all those unique challenges. And so having ready-made space for them is really key. And one of the groups that we work with oftentimes is the OSU Advantage Accelerator. So this is an accelerator program that helps incubate and grow technology coming out of OSU or otherwise here in the Valley. And they've got some associated space for this kind of incubation growth there on site, but that's always full. There's very few vacancies there. And we work with them closely. And just last year alone, there was 9 companies that have come through their program that have commercialized and are growing, but had no space. So there's a lot of effort going into entrepreneurship development here and support, but not a lot into creating space for them to grow into. And anyhow, Chris identified that, as many others have, and has drawn up plans for 22,000 square feet, a little bit more actually, of flexible manufacturing space, typically 5,000-foot stalls that are demisable and can be used for any number of uses. So anyhow, we're calling it the Tahkeena Manufacturing Hub, and that came to mind for this particular grant. We put together a grant proposal with Business Oregon in very short order, and also got a letter of support. We have some from local legislators, as well as, I don't know, there's probably 10 or 15 local partners here, including the Chamber and AMBDEC, who are represented here today, understanding that they see the opportunity as well. We'd like to see some of that grant money come here to Albany to help offset what we know are accelerating cost of construction. To see that come to Albany sooner than later, because we're losing companies all the time because we don't have space for them. So I have that proposal here. I'll pass out to you as well, and you're welcome to look at that. I just make a note too, pardon me, because, well, it's good business to have good partnerships with people. And there isn't an overarching economic development authority in our region. Some regions have a multi-county organization or otherwise, and we don't have one here. But what we do have is pretty good coordination amongst partners. And we put a lot of effort into staying well connected with them. Takes time, but it also pays off as well for our community specifically. And I just wanted to note a few of those for you. I've talked with you many times in the past about the challenge for creating shovel-ready industrial job-creating properties. One of the barriers we have with an undeveloped land here all over the valley is wetlands, and they affect development potential in several ways. And I'm not disregarding their natural value as well in terms of environmental services, but they are a barrier, and we do have land that's sited for development, but there are challenges there. And a number of years ago, an outfit called the Oregon Cascade West, well, you know, the COG, they've hosted the regional consortium on wetlands. There's a working group, primarily folks like myself and city managers from all over the valley who have proposed some innovative legislative solutions and have been doing some work and funding some unique ideas like having a municipally held or shared wetland bank that would create developable credits. We're doing feasibility work on that, and so we participate in that quite closely. There's also a Mid-Willamette Valley Food Trail Steering Committee. This is about promoting farm to food, farm to table, sort of tourism, local and regional tourism opportunities here, and Sophie sits on that group. There's, of course, the Albany Downtown Association, where we sit as a board liaison, making sure there's a close connection with the city. The Lynn Benton Economic Development Group, which is hosted by the COG as well, and that's a monthly forum for economic developers throughout Lynn, Benton, Lincoln, and Lane counties to talk and share best practices, hear from statewide partners and that kind of thing. There's also the Oregon Economic Development Association has a tax increment finance committee that Sophie serves on and has learned and shared best practices there. And then just recently, I was actually asked to sit on a working group of the Oregon Semiconductor Task Force. That made some headlines here in the last few months as we lost some major expansions of some mega fab sites from Intel. There just wasn't sites large enough to support that kind of development here in Oregon. And our federal senators and governor got together and created a task force. And given our pretty focused efforts on creating buildable lands down here in Albany, we were asked to participate on that as well on the industrial land side of that. They're taking a multi-pronged effect, looking at how to support that industry's growth here in Oregon, and lands is, of course, part of that. Okay, well, lastly, let me just tell you, per our discussions on strategic planning and goal setting, we're also undergoing a revision of our strategic plan, and I think over the summer we'll have a chance to look at that together. And with that, let me just finish, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those, and if not, we'll plan on doing this, quarterly or something like that.
So, Council?
Okay.
Yes, we're looking forward to that. Council, anything for Seth? Did you have anything for him? Any questions for him? Go, fire away.
I heard that you were creating a wetland bank so that people could, mitigate wetlands.
Looking at the feasibility of a municipally held one. So there are private bankers who purchase land and create wetland credits for sale. Eugene has its own bank. They've got something like 600 acres that they've produced there. So we're looking at the possibility of a conglomerate ownership of something like that.
So then who would be able to utilize that bank?
Sure. So of course, if it happened, that would need to get worked out. But the idea is this council, for example, could set the priorities around our stake and ownership over that, where there was a priority, for example, job creation or housing or what have you, because any development that impacts or is impacted by wetlands needs to mitigate for that. So those credits could be useful for any sort of development on wetland encumbered lands. So much to come on that, just looking at models primarily of how other public organizations have held those banks, how it's worked, if it's penciled, and to see what we might explore together.
So can you explain to us where that money actually goes?
Where, which money?
The money people spend for wetlands mitigation.
Yeah, so I can do it in general terms for you,
Okay.
and it might be worth just a little bit of explanation. Wetlands are graded by quality, and depending on the quality of that wetland that you impact depends on how many credits you have to purchase to offset the impact of that impacted chunk of wetland. So we often talk about acres as the unit of measurement here. It is possible to have a scenario where a high-functioning acre of wetland requires 7 acres of credits to be purchased to offset that impact. And so to your cost a little bit, right now the average working cost in the Willamette Valley for one credit purchase is $93,000. So it's a high price tag, and that's largely impacted by land value, because when a wetland banker purchases land to improve or create wetlands on, they're required to keep it in wetlands into perpetuity, into the future, forever. So when you look at land costs and land value, there's a trade-off there. You're now saying this is in wetlands and not farming or forest land or development or what have you. And so by taking it out of that, you're saying, what's the future value of that land? And they're speculating a bit when they purchase and develop that land as well. So that's where some of it goes. And then there's a high cost to developing and enhancing wetlands too. There's a lot of land work that has to happen. They purchase native seeds that are grown and kept in native seed banks, plants, and all that kind of thing. And then they have to maintain them over time to an extent. So it's interesting. Eugene's purpose in creating wetland banking was to make sure there's credits available and that they could support specific types of development per their growth goals. Councilor Bartholomew, to your question. But they've revised their cost recently. They're trying to not make any money on it. They just wanted to make credits available, but their cost is almost exact same as the private. Well, it's a little bit less, but it's in the same ballpark as private banked credits as well now. It's an expensive process.
Thank you.
You're
Council?
welcome.
Councilor Novak.
Thank you. I am excited about 3D printing and potentially also what you mentioned with the titanium recycling. But if I'm understanding correctly, the people in Louisiana are looking at bringing their people here and doing business here, right?
Correct.
It's not necessarily new job creation, but people here doing business would impact the community.
Yeah, so they would come here, bring the handful of employees that they have, and continue to hire and grow here. And then there's an additional impact because they now have a ready service for associated business manufacturing here in our area to produce for them as well. So there's cost savings for existing companies and the ability to prototype and create parts in a much more rapid fashion than they do traditionally, sending tooling and injection molding to China. There's weeks of delay and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Kopsinski? Councilor Smith? Councilor Olson?
Well, I heard a whole bunch of stuff here, but I didn't hear anything positive about our downtown. And nobody interested in our downtown.
Well, funny you mentioned that because a couple of the most recent recruitments we've had want to be here specifically in the downtown. Muse Engine being one of them. They were looking at space down here specifically. And our last successful recruitment, where we actually had a company come here that we really worked on, was Lazarus 3D, who's located on the waterfront as well. And they won't stop talking about how much they love being down there. So it's kind of fun to see folks really appreciate, I think, the work that's gone, the investment that's gone on down there, and appreciate bringing investors and new clients down as well.
What was the name again?
Lazarus 3D.
Have you been out there, Council?
Where?
Lazarus 3D? Have you been out there to the site?
I have.
I'd love to take you out there. It's phenomenal technology.
Yeah.
And
Is
I
that
used
the
to work at
company in the
HP.
wheelhouse? Pardon me for interrupting. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work in printing, inkjet printing out at HP, and the work that they're doing out there is tremendously remarkable. I just think it's brilliant. We just got to keep them here,
Yeah,
right?
indeed.
Okay, so we agree on that. All right, so I think we're all done. So thank you very much for your
You're very
report.
welcome. I'll pass these out for you.
Okay, and then next on the agenda is business from the council, and I will start with Councilor Johnson because she's remote.
Hey, nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilor Bartholomew.
I just wanted to thank the protocols and the leadership of our first responders for this weekend. I really appreciated how they're taking care of themselves after having to deal with the things that they deal with.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Olson.
Nothing.
Councilor Smith.
I wanted to say that I had, I had been contacted by members of the public about both of the street vacations that are coming before us. And also on my morning walk earlier this week, I noticed that the disc golf course is up in Deerfield Park.
Nice. Nice. Councilor Kopsinski.
Nothing tonight?
Councilor Novak.
Nothing, sir.
Thank you. All I had was I'd like to extend my appreciation for our first responders this weekend. You saw the news reports. They had a hard weekend. And it was rough for me being the son of a police officer, knowing what those families are going through. So I do appreciate the police department and the efforts to ensure those police officers that responded are safe and their families are aware that they're being taken care of. This morning, I had the pleasure of attending a swearing in of 4 police officers, 4 of them, and 2 staff members. And I listened to other mayors and city councilors about the struggles they're having with finding police officers. And we're not having that problem. And it's because Albany is a great place to live. We have a great police department, great leadership in the city, and people are coming here, lateral transfers, new people. So Albany has been blessed with a great police department. Let's support them and make sure that they're safe so they can keep us safe. And then I'm done, and I will have the city manager's report from Director Bailey.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
With that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Councilor Johnson, are you starting the ARA meeting?
Yeah, do you want to just go ahead and start?